It is that time, ladies and gents, to do a review of the new Nechronomancer class. So if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and of course leave the video with a like. So if you're not aware, this is the 2021 calendar class, and yes, this year it is a farmer. So overall I have given this class an A, and we'll go through the video breaking down into different sections such as farming, soloing and PvP as to why I think it deserves that rating. Of course that isn't quite hitting the S tier, but you know, it will do, and it is actually a pretty enjoyable class to use. So I reckon it's now time to crack on with looking at the class. Let's have a look at your abilities. So your auto attack deals damage to up to 3 targets and infects their cells with necrosis, which deals damage over time and it stacks up to ×5. Auto attacking your targets which are affected by necrosis heals you for a portion of the damage that you deal, which is increased by each stack you have. Your second ability. This one deals damage to up to 3 targets again and applies a stack of Chaos Rift for each target that has been hit. Stacks to 4 and lasts for 30 seconds. It also applies passage of time for 8 seconds. Both effects are used to empower your other abilities, which we'll come on to later. You also go into an Eternal Frenzy, increasing your outgoing damage by 6% for 8 seconds. Stacks to 9. It costs 10% of your maximum HP per target you hit. Next up, your third ability is you are able to summon undead minions that attack, believe it or not, up to 3 targets, and applies travelling through time, which increases your haste by 30% for 8 seconds. If Passage of Time is active, it applies foreseeable future, increasing your crit chance by 20% for 8 seconds, and that stacks to ×3. Your fourth ability, this one again will hit up to 3 targets and deals increased damage for each stack of necrosis on them. After a short moment, your primary target takes damage based on amount you've dealt while under the effects of Chaos Rift in the past 10 seconds. Consumes necrosis and Chaos Rift stacks, always hits but cannot crit. And finally, you have got, if you have stacks of Chaos Rift, they are consumed to apply Empress's Awakening, which heals you after 1 second and consumes all stacks of Eternal Frenzy. Also applies debuffs based on your active effects up to 3 additional targets. You will apply Travelling Through Time, which takes away 20% dodge, Foreseeable Future for an extra 20% damage taken, Passage of Time, minus 20% hit chance, and these effects all last for 10 seconds. Moving on, let's talk about farming. So this class, as I said earlier, is a farming class, and for that, I am going to give it a top tier ranking because it does exactly what it needs to do. And actually, although as you can see in the background, it does not do terribly much damage, with damage over time, of course, you can add a little bit extra on. This class has super low cooldown times, which is pretty essential when you want to use it for its purpose of farming. As you can see me in the background, the combo that I mostly use is I make sure to get the auto attack in because that is really, really important so you can get your necrosis stacks. Then I'll always hit ability 2 so we can get a rift. Then I go 5, 3 and 4. The reason I pick that order is just down to preference really. You can change it up if you wanted. Making sure to use your 5th ability is actually really important for the debuffs that you can apply, and it only uses your frenzy stacks as well. I have found that it doesn't really matter how many stacks of necrosis or rifts you have before you use your 4th ability, as it will always pretty much hit between 1000 and 2000 DPS. So personally I wouldn't recommend trying to wait until you max your stacks because it's not going to make a huge amount of difference. Again, when you use your heal from ability 5, it's always at least 500 plus, so it is going to keep you plodding along with your auto attack healing you at the same time. Next up, we have soloing. So I think it is pretty fair to say that this class is really not designed for this. But you know what, it still gets a B from me because fundamentally you will not die with it as long as you don't just spam number 2, because that will just inevitably end in disaster. So as you can see in the background, we are just carrying on with the combination I've been going through. I did try some other ones just to mix it up from time to time, but doing that really will not change the outcome of how much damage you are managing to output to your enemies when you're trying to defeat them with this. So that said, although this class will keep you alive and you can build that damage over time up to about 600 odd, I couldn't get it any higher for the life of me, and that was just through spamming the auto attack for a little bit just to see what it could actually do, because you've got to remember you can only put 5 stacks on, so there is a limit to how high that's going to go. Eventually, however, I did finally defeat the dragon, and then it was time to move on to PvP. So the one thing I would say is if you're thinking of using this in the arena, don't. There is literally no point. Your damage output is just so low. Yes, you have those tiny little heals that may just keep you alive against some classes, but fundamentally, you are going to die pretty much every single time, which is why this one, for PvP, only got a rank D. Honestly, I got hammered every single time, and the main issue with trying to use this in PvP is the fact you need to build your stacks up to have any chance at all at dealing some sort of damage, and you just don't get that chance. Yes, here, maybe I could have actually tried to have built up just 2 or 3 stacks to try and then use my 4th ability, but realistically, that's never going to happen when you come up against someone using any kind of PvP class. Time Killer would honestly smash this class out of the park in the arena, and I can assure you of that because I have used Time Killer in PvP, and I don't think it's all that bad. So on screen, just picking up some of the artwork just in case you want to know what the calendar actually looked like. So to quickly summarise, this class is a really good farming one. With its super low cooldowns, its good heal, and its damage over time, you will be able to get through farming enemies really quickly and effectively when you're using this. So for me, I will probably use this instead of Blazebinder from now on, just because it's something different and I do actually quite like it. It does start to fall down when you start looking at soloing bosses. Yes, it will do lower enemies, but as soon as you go on to harder hitting ones, you are not going to stand a chance, and in the PvP arena, you will get slaughtered, so do not use it at all for that purpose. As far as ranking this amongst the other calendar classes goes, it's not obviously the greatest one in the world, but it's not the worst, and it is something different. I mean, all the others are pretty much soloing classes, so we can't really compare them all that greatly, but I'm pretty sure some of them would still shred through farming some enemies pretty quickly with the higher DPS. It is a shame it's such low damage output, but I think that's just one way they sort of could balance it out with the fact that the cooldowns are just so low on it. Certainly this class is considerably easier to use than previous year's ones, and you don't need any extra consumables for it. And there we go. So guys, thank you all very much for watching. Leave the video a like and of course subscribe, and I'll be back very soon for another video.